film school, you get to do everything. You know, you record sound, you shoot people's movies, you edit, you do it all. And you find your sweet spot. And for me, that was producing. And she asked me what I wanted to do. I said, well, produce one day, that's where I'm headed. And she said, you need to learn accounting. And she put me in the accounting department. And I ended up being on the movie for about 2 years. You could probably say any art form is about problem solving in the art. And that's part of the wonderful puzzle that you're trying to put together. A movie is something that you're able to really expand your perspective and feel as if a main character or supporting character is related to you.
First question is, when somebody asks you what you do, usually what is your answer?
I'm a filmmaker, is my answer, yeah.
And how is your day-to-day right now?
Well, we're in such an unusual time. I was on a great Showtime pilot, but anyway, production's shut down. So what I've been doing is really using the time to develop projects with writers. So I've 3, and it's been a gift to have the time to really focus on those and have nice long phone calls and, you know, with the collaborators. So that's been, you know, really fun, I have to say, yeah.
So you usually work in the post-production as a post-production supervisor, but also I saw that you work as a co-producer sometimes. So are you shifting, or are you mix, or you adjust yourself wherever you need?
I know. Well, that's kind of the end of the little story, but in television, the post-production really runs in tangent with production. So most of the producers and directors I've worked with before, and they bring me in really early, and we figure it all out together. Who's going to be the composer, the editor, you know, even in the script stage when they're casting. You know, that the post-supervising and post-producing was a way for me to stay local in New York City and raise 3 children. And my husband is a very busy entrepreneur, so it allowed me not to go on location. And my youngest is now 16. So I've been using this time to say, all right, I'm ready to, you know, produce and executive produce. That'll be my next chapter.
So right now you are working in projects as a post-production supervisor and also as a co-producer?
Yeah, right now I work just solely as a co-producer, which means that I work during production as well as post-production. I come in usually even before prep. For the Showtime pilot, it started shooting in beginning of March, and I was on it starting in December. So in that way, it's co-producing because you're, you know, trying to set up all especially right now, visual effects have, you know, improved so much, and they're usually crucial in the storytelling. So that's a big component of coming on early, as well as getting your editing team together, and just helping, you know, even the costume department with certain decisions, you know, to take it through to the end.
And when discover your passion for production or for filmmaking?
You know, everyone has their own journey of what sparks them when they're young, and I was lucky. I went to college. I was an English literature major for undergraduate, but I also was a jazz flautist and a modern dancer, and I always wrote stories. I was going to do a senior thesis on Virginia Woolf, and I decided to write a screenplay instead, and the school supported me, and I submitted it to N.Y.U Graduate Film School to go there. So I did feel it was a way to combine all my interests and passions into filmmaking. And then, you know, like anything, you kind of hopefully jump in. And for me, film school was good because I was very shy still. And, you know, it was part of my evolution. I was very grateful to get in because I only wanted to go to N.Y.U. I love New York. I love the East Coast. It's culturally very different from the LA, you know, scene where there's many more jobs, I think, in Los Angeles, but New York has a very strong, vibrant, independent film community that I just loved. So in film school, you get to do everything. You know, you record sound, you shoot people's movies, you edit, you do it all. And you find your sweet spot. And for me, that was producing. Just people started asking me to produce their shorts. And it was, you know, it was a really special, incredibly hard, you know, it's like, I feel about my classmates like we survived the platoon, you know, together. We were in the trenches, and it gave, and you really learn to deal with collaborating, which is not for everybody. You know, it's a very specific art form where you are constantly working in a crew and relying on others. And, you know, and that takes some practice. But it's one of the things I love most about filmmaking, because you really get to be like a family. You're working long hours, and you know, you need to be able to laugh at yourself and feed everyone really well, and raise each other to a level that is about the story you're trying to tell.
In every production, it's a new team or new people. It's starting and going.
Yeah, and that's kind of exciting, I feel, at the beginning, and that's the wonderful gypsy life of freelancing, you know, and going from one production to another, and then you find people that have a similar aesthetic, you know, like some people like apples better than oranges kind of thing. And I feel really lucky to have found people that I could work with again and again and keep learning from and keep kind of improving. And those relationships, that's what it's about, in my opinion, the really nurturing relationships with the people that raise your game and you feel you can contribute and raise theirs as well. And that, you know, I've had a long career now. I mean, I got out of film school in 1992. And my journey was, I started out of film school. I didn't have any connections, and was who do you know? And I really encourage people to join organizations, go to the mayor's office for film and TV in your local state, see what productions are happening. I joined IFP, Independent Feature Project, which is still running strong and fantastic. You know, get in the flow of filmmakers and people that you can meet. And even if it's, you know, I felt after graduate school, I didn't really want to volunteer or intern. You know, I felt like, okay, I'm ready. I need to be paid. I have student loans to pay off. I'm very responsible. I even waitressed all through graduate school to afford the films, to make the films. But, you know, I think the beauty of those relationships coming to fruition and being able to call on people, and because I think you could probably say any art form is about problem solving in the art, and that's part of the wonderful puzzle that you're trying to put together and be creative about and figure the best way. So the problems become bonding moments often with people, and ways to, you know, maybe figure out a solution that you had no intention of doing. And it goes right into the editing. It's not just the shooting and putting it together, but what happens when the actor isn't really delivering what the director had wanted to see. And there's many things you can do, in editing and in reshooting, and the Showtime model in particular is a subscription cable service. They will make a pilot, really invest a significant amount of money in a 60-minute pilot, for the purpose of if they need to recast, do they need to add scenes? At the end of the pilot, they screen it for an audience, and every chair has a handle on the chair, to judge the music, the mood, the actor, the information, did you understand it, that kind of thing. Right. So then they go back and fix whatever it is, so that they then green light the whole season, and feel, confident that they can do well with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sounds like every step of the process. Yeah, you did it a lot of time, right?
I did it a lot of times, and every company is different. Every director is different, and it's really I believe producing is something where ideally you can be with the project from the beginning and see it through to the end, releasing it into the world. That's kind of ideal. And when I started out, so my story is I started out of school working for a music supervisor, a wonderful man, Geoffrey Kimball, who was working on a Robert De Niro movie, a Steven Soderbergh movie, Nancy Savoca, really the best in New York. And that was just really fun. You just kind of get thrown into it. You figure out what you need to do. It's usually about organization, problem solving. For him, what was interesting about music is it's truly the emotional landscape of the film or the TV show. And a lot of time is spent not just searching for songs and licensing, but in really working with the composer.
So sometimes it took a lot of time to came and finish a process, right?
Yeah, especially if there's animation. You can be on a film for a very long time. After the music supervisor, I met with a film producer who eventually moved to London, but she was an incredible woman, Diana Phillips. And I said, I really want to produce. Is there anything on this movie that you're getting up and running? It was a big Warner Brothers, Geffen Pictures animated live action animation. And she asked me what I wanted to do. I said, well, produce one day, that's where I'm headed. And she said, you need to learn accounting. And she put me in the accounting department. And I ended up being on the movie for about 2 years because, accounting is the first department that starts. The budget is the spine of the movie. It really is. And as a producer, that's your fiscal responsibility, is to hit your budget and your schedule. So after that, the position for post supervisor came up, and I applied, and there were, I think, 6 other candidates. And there was a very assertive production coordinator who knew the producer, Diana, very well. She came over to me and really was not very encouraging. She's like, I just want you to know there's a lot of people up for this job, and you haven't done it before. So I just be realistic about your chances. And I was just, a little shocked. And And I just really pushed that away because there are times everyone hits negative people
Mm-hmm.
and you got to really be careful, and I don't know if she was going through something personally, but I just tried to steer clear, do my job. And I, really prepared for the interview. I knew what I was talking about. And then I wrote a really, I think, really beautiful thank you card. Not just you can write emails and
Mm-hmm.
that's really nice too. But I felt this one needed something special. So I wrote a card to each of the people that I interviewed with. And when I went in to meet with Diana, the producer, the next day she had the card on her bulletin board because it was really pretty. I'm like, oh yeah, because I'll remind her. And I ended up getting it. And it was a really long, complicated movie where music videos were made and reshoots were done. And so that's kind of why it lasted so long. But that was lucky. She gave me a break because, one of the hard parts about the film business is if you haven't done the job before, most people don't let you have your first crack at it. They really like to know what are your credits, how many, in order to ensure that you know what you're doing. And that's okay. I mean, this was a nice case because they knew me. I had already worked for I think it was 6 or 7 months in the job before applying for post supervising. So that worked out great. And then after that, I landed with John Sayles and Maggie Renzi, who are like quintessential independent New York filmmakers. And I worked for them for 5 years, associate producing and post-production supervising. And there I was on the production track to, help Maggie Renzi produce. And we went to Alaska Juneau, Alaska for the film Limbo, beautiful movie. And that's when I got pregnant and started having kids. So for me, the post-production was like, all right, this is nice, this is fine. And in film, post-production is really usually quite a long process because you need to screen, you need to really understand what you birthed, so to speak, not the film you fantasized of making and that sunset shot that you stayed up till, whatever to get or did whatever you needed to do to get needs to be cut out of the film. So that's, I love the screening process. I think, I was already, I feel, a strong writer, and I'm really good at story structure. But this allowed me to really learn about, pacing and humor versus drama versus thriller, what genre are you in?
The energy of the movie, like to the time.
Yeah.
And what do you wish you had known when you started in your career? If you look to the past now and said, oh, I wish I had known this thing, or maybe multiple things.
I mean, I feel, it's a funny question because I feel, I don't know if I would have done it differently. I feel like I would have taken on more producing work with directors earlier. On the one hand. On the other, I felt like I was working with these incredible directors and producers. Like it's hard to say no to paid jobs that are really remarkable films. And that was lucky that I just got into that, after John Sayles, it just kept going, from David Mamet's to Robert Altman's. Like some of the best filmmakers of our time, really, and their producers. So I think what I knew and that worked out well was that I got there early and I was willing to do, no task was too small for me. And I think on the bigger budget Hollywood movies, sometimes it can be very compartmentalized of what category you're in and not doing someone else, But in the independent film world, it's really only serves you, in my opinion, to have as much experience doing it all. And that was nice about film school. But even if you don't go to film school, you can make short films, and be offer to be someone's camera person or boom or what have you. The more informed you are about all the jobs, the better producer you're going to be. So I would say, what didn't I know at that time? I'm a very intuitive person, and the other thing I maybe wasn't conscious of, but I knew was important, is to nurture the relationship that I felt was a really good working professional relationship. And so I still work with people that I met 20, 25 years ago. I mean, I still call them, we become friends. I know their families. I mean, when you work really hard, it's nice when it crosses over. Not that it has to all the time, but I enjoy that about my work, and I'm really, really proud to have kept up so many relationships that. So, for instance, I'm developing a project with an amazing director, and he wants to shoot in the Arctic. And I'm not really at liberty to say what it's about at this point because we're pitching it. But, so I was able to call a producer I worked with, 12 years ago and say, do you know anyone that shot, in Canada, it needs to look like the Arctic, how can we cheat it? Here's, and he gave me people to call, and they had just shot in Iceland and Norway, and that's, that's the bounty I feel you can have. And if he called me, I would go through my Rolodex, that's community. And that, life is short. It's like so great to work with people that have your back, want to help you, and enjoy problem solving with you.
And why production? Why filmmaking? What is something that moved you to do this and to enjoy it?
For me, I mean, a good book can do it, certainly. A beautiful piece of music, certainly, or a painting. But a movie is something that you're able to really expand your perspective and feel as if a main character or supporting character is related to you, to feel like you really connect with it, with the story and those characters emotionally. And I think the power in expanding someone's perspective and taking them through a story and showing them that enriches, their experience of life, and hopefully their understanding of what matters and what our responsibilities are, who we are, our common humanity. I mean, not to get too deep, but I do really feel that it is a big responsibility when you put out a movie into the world and you're affecting people. So I'm pretty, try to be thoug't about what projects I'm doing and how people are portrayed, and and always try to put a lot of muscle into the writing and the story, the creation of the story ahead of time, that there's complexity, and that it can really take someone on a journey that will stay with them,
And what are you curious about right now? Are you reading something? Are you preparing for new projects? Are you
Yeah, definitely. I have, I think, 3 scripts. I'm a little behind. I have 1 book. I was lucky. I went to a great undergrad, Washington University in St. Louis, and a fellow student became a publisher. We were majoring in literature together. So he sends me books from time to time, which is great because then I know I can option them. It's not this long trek of a search. So that's been lucky. And yeah, the projects I have are anything from a small independent movie about a 10-year-old girl who runs away from home, from a very difficult home, and in doing so liberates her mother. It's a beautiful story. To 2 TV series. Both of them are pretty ambitious. And then 1 documentary that I've been helping with. I'm not, I have the least experience in documentary filmmaking. It's a bit of a different animal, and it's fantastic. I just don't do it as much because I like the story development process.
So is there anything that I should ask but I didn't?
I think what's key to surviving in the business and kind of enjoying yourself in the process is to be persistent, to celebrate when you've accomplished something. That's really bonding. I've always kind of enjoyed hosting dinners and having like we all went through this long process together to take a moment to really acknowledge each other like you would in a family. The persistence and follow-up, and thank yous, thank you cards or a nice note. And when you send a cover letter, like always just be conscious of how you're presenting yourself, and communication is really important. Writing skills are important. It's not everything. If you can speak and are articulate, that's great too. But often you have to, like, part of the job is enrolling people, right, in what you're doing all the time. And whether it's solving a problem or it's considering an actor that no one would have considered, you're really trying to contribute, really genuinely collaborate. So you have, you make it better, you make the project better. So I think that takes a lot of follow-up, and not to, always be, but people are busy in different degrees. And sometimes when they don't get back to you, it's just don't take things personally or try not to. I think, right, especially when you're young, that's really hard. You're earnest and you want to a foot in the door, and you'll get it. I think if you're persistent and you're able to send nice notes and you follow up, and then you nurture that relationship when someone does give you a chance. It starts to really build and right from the beginning. So I think the foundation at the beginning would be persistence, follow up, get there early, and be willing, and be happy. Like people, it's a long day, and people enjoy people who are easy to hang out with, and learn to manage your stress. Everyone stresses out at different points. And, I saw in film school in particular, I saw a lot of people kind of not make it through film school because of the stress of these crazy, you have 3 days to shoot something with these people you don't really know. Good luck. But that's good training. It's good training to learn to manage your behavior and yourself, keep yourself in check, be there to really be a cheerleader and support, as a producer, being a cheerleader and supporting the director and your crew is fundamental. So that, I think, is what I would add that you didn't ask.
That's awesome. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this piece of advice. And yeah, definitely it's really helpful for our community, for myself as well. I'm listening to you, and I hope that more people can hear your story and can be inspired by your work and all what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, I'll close with, it doesn't, in a weird way, and I think famous actors will say this too, you know, it doesn't necessarily get easier in terms of once the job's over, you know, you're like, oh, what's next? And it's always a little bit of a mad scramble. You know, it's always a little, your heart goes pitter patter and you don't know who's going to call when. And that's so freelancing isn't for everybody. And there's certainly jobs at companies and being executives if that drives you too crazy. But the plus side about it is everyone feels the same way. And have faith in yourself, be willing to try different things and meet new people. And you know, everyone is afraid, and that could block them maybe from applying for something, or like certainly that production coordinator who was trying to discourage me. Of course I would have, like, part of me was like, oh, who am I kidding? But just listen to your heart, you know, like follow what your path, and don't give up.